So I'm out here at the VerTac range, and being that we're in such a rural location and we get some pretty significant and heavy snowfall, the temperatures can be pretty harsh. We have seen negative 20-degree temperatures, and so we've adapted some of our kit and some of our gear to be accommodating for these harsher conditions. I wanted to share with you guys my purpose-built winter carbine and what I chose and why I chose to do it. So this is a BCM Mark II carbine with a Proof Research 11.5-inch barrel. I chose the Proof Research because it is a carbon fiber wrapped bull barrel profile, but you get the weight of a pencil barrel. So I'm getting all the benefits of a bull barrel, but I'm also getting the weight of a low profile pencil barrel. And again, when you're out in extreme conditions, it's really cold, your body's working in overdrive because of the colder temperatures, you want to keep the weight down as much as you possibly can. Now, when you get the extreme lower temperatures, you're probably going to be wearing a lot more gear, sweatshirts, underlayers, and puffy jackets. This is the Audi Gear HT jacket, and I'm wearing the Audi Gear wind pant that minimizes the amount of moisture that's going to come through, the amount of wind, and it keeps me dry and keeps the wind from coming through and getting the legs cold. Now, since I am going to be more puffy, I'm going to be wanting a slimmed down, thinner rifle. So I chose to keep the BCM Mod Zero stock on here so that I could still, even with my balaclavas or my goggles or with the puffier jackets, I could still get as tight into the carbine as possible. Next, I went with the Mark II upper, as on all my carbines. One of the places that you see failing the most in the cold weather and extreme environments is going to be the dust cover. Now, being that it's typically a metal dust cover, I chose to go with the Magpul polymer dust cover. However, to work with the BCM Mark II upper, I did have to modify it a little bit. I do have the same setup on this carbine as all my other carbines, where I'm going to have a Geissele posi snap safety, but I'm also going to have a Geissele 2-stage trigger. This one specifically, I went with the Tricon trigger. Now you can see that the Tricon trigger is set more rearward. Now that accommodates to let me use thicker gloves and still get my finger into the trigger well. Moving forward, I went with the Surefire Turbo Scout Pro. This is the full-size version, which puts out a lot of candela, and it gives me a bigger battery. This is an 18650 battery. Now, being that the extreme cold wreaks havoc on batteries, I wanted the larger battery because I'm probably going to get diminished battery life if I'm in 20 degrees or below. Now, again, a lot of different thoughts on laser systems. This is a B.E. Myers Mall. The reason I kept this same profile was with larger gloves. When I'm using thicker gloves, it's harder to feel smaller buttons and knobs, whereas the Mall has basically 2 buttons. I also went with the new Surefire pressure switch, which is just a singular button that plugs into the back. I can light press it for momentary or go with a constant on click, but I can actually still feel it through the gloves, and it is a very distinct difference from the Mall's buttons. Additionally, if I want to change the settings on the Mall, I can feel if I'm rotating the propeller cap from IR to Viz or off. I can also still feel the slider as I'm moving it back and forth. So that is something I can still manipulate very positively under the thicker gloves. Huxworks flow-through suppressor. As you go from extreme temperature variations, Hux has a really good flow-through design. So I'm getting a lighter weight, shorter profile, and it allows me to regulate the temperature within the gun. Now I have a Superlative Arms piston kit in here that works very nicely in these extreme conditions with keeping the gun not as hot. So then if you're not building up as much pressure and heat within the gun, then the gun doesn't experience as many extreme temperature fluctuations inside. That minimizes the amount of condensation that's going to build in the gun inside and out, which leads to more failures. Now, running the piston allows me to keep the gun cleaner and cooler inside. If I get extreme temperatures, like on a direct impingement system, it's going to get dirtier, it's going to get hotter. That leads to burning off more oil. That's going to lead to more condensation in the gun, and that leads to the higher probability of a failure sooner. No problems running a direct impingement, especially with the flow-through can. It's what I would have no problems with that. What I'm saying is that the piston allows me to run more reliably for longer. My optic of choice is gonna be the ACOG. I chose the ACOG. It's not something I typically choose. I went with the ACOG because of the simplicity. This is the LED version of the ACOG because in the winter, when you have overcast skies, the sun breaks through, the lighting consistently changes. You could go into the tree line and you're gonna be in the dark, but it can be extremely well lit and high contrast lighting. So I wanna be able to control the amount of light very quickly when I'm in different environments. So I did not go with the fiber optic for that reason. Now batteries still die in the extreme cold, so I went with an etched reticle for that exact reason. If my battery dies for any particular reason, I still have my etched reticle as a worst case scenario. But I have the ability to utilize a large knob on the left side here. Very gross motor skills, large knob. With my thick gloves, I can adjust it back and forth and change the LED settings. I also went with a Holosun EPS on top of the ACOG. The benefit of running the LED version is that it's forward set. Therefore, when I'm running passive shooting with night vision, it is a little more out of the way and it's easier to acquire this dot when it's further forward. Now, something else that I thought was a new benefit that I've learned about the ACOG, you can still passive shoot without messing with your focus on your night vision if you can get behind the ACOG properly, which is really tough, but you can do it, especially from like a kneeling or prone position. If you can work your way behind the ACOG and you set the LED correctly, you can actually use the ACOG for passive shooting. You just got to make sure you got enough light. It requires a very specific lighting condition and you have to have time to get into that. For quicker acquisition, you're definitely going to want to use the red dot, but that's why I chose the ACOG. When things are frozen, things get wet, things get stuck, I didn't want to be using a flip up or flip to side magnifier. Again, when you have 4 lenses, you're going to have a red dot, like an EOTech or an aim point. That's 4 lenses that can become fogged versus the 2 on just an ACOG. An LPVO is good, but again, rotating a magnifier back and forth, that could become frozen. Things get wet, things get hot, rain, sleet, snow melts. You'll see that when you're done with a long course of fire, things are gonna be wet, and then when you stop, it's gonna freeze again. So I chose not to go with an LPVO, specifically to keep it simple. Plus, the ACOG is nice because while the eye relief isn't always optimal, no matter what position, if you can see through this magnified optic, if you can see through it, you don't have to be perfect. LPVOs can be very unforgiving. Red dots with magnifiers especially can be very unforgiving, and with snow and awkward positioning, you don't have always the option to have the optimal perfect eye relief. The ACOG is forgiving with its eye relief. So let me know what you guys think. What would you change? What would you do different? What are your thoughts on a winter carbine setup, and what do you use? What has been your experience? I'm Brandon Verrett with VerTac. Thanks for watching.